Hey guys, what's up? Anganov here. Just recently I discovered that on the 20th anniversary of Spider-Man 2000, Chad Finley, the game's lead designer, was featured in an article discussing the game's development and sharing never before seen pages of the game's development book, including early cutscene scripts and level designs. So today, I will break down and analyze every piece of information worth sharing with the rest of the Spider-Man 2000 community. Now before the actual video starts, I just want to inform you guys that there is an official Discord server linked below where you can do whatever, as long as you follow the rules. And be sure to follow my Twitter and Instagram, as I'm gonna try to start posting on them more often. Also subscribe and like the video please. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the video. One of the most significant parts in this whole article is that in the original cast for the game, Vulture was proposed as a boss. This is super surprising, as this is the first and only source of information that Vulture was even considered to be featured in the game. Another cut boss that we already know about is Lizard, but he would be discussed later on in the video. Other bosses planned from the start were Scorpion, Mysterio, and Venom, who seem to have a bigger role in the story according to the early plans, being a constant threat. The regular bad guys in the original cast consist of the thugs, police, guards, and symbiote soldiers. Most of these ended up in the final, with the thugs and symbiotes getting big design changes. As for the guards, I'm not sure how that was going to tie into the story, as they are not seen in the final or they were renamed. Something I wasn't expecting to see in this article was Venom's original planned moveset. For movement, Venom switches between circling around Spidey and advancing towards Spidey. He never backs away. Venom's idol is a low, ready-to-pounce crouch with claws open at his side. Some of this was kept in the final in some form, but here's something cool. Venom will jump to the ceiling and crawl over Spidey to drop down on the other side, where they might have used a link to nav points. It's unknown why this was removed, maybe due to it being too complicated to make or it was too challenging for players, but this would have been super cool to see in action. For attacks, Venom retains his short range attack, but for medium he has a jump fist smash, where Venom rears back to a crouch, then launches up and forward, slamming his fist to the ground as he comes down. Sadly, we never get to see his long-ranged attack, but there is a chance it would have been the same or similar to his web yank or fist stretch move he has in the final game. A very cool early level design we get to see is Mysterio's level, which is similar to the final, but with some very unique changes. The platform would have been cut up into separate smaller platforms, with the number of platforms getting smaller as you go up a level. This would have definitely been way too hard for players, and it is understandable why they changed it. A visual or story element that would have changed in this level is that the giant Mysterio was planned to be a giant robot instead of the illusion that we see in the final, with quoted power couples which could be web yanked, hit, or web impacted. On the next page, we get to see the early script and sketch for the cutscene that would have played after you saved JJ from Scorpion. I don't feel like reading this entire script out, so pause if you want to read the full thing. But to sum it up, cops enter the Bugle and start attacking Spider-Man. Spidey jumps out the window and is greeted by the police helicopter, and a small exchange is given before the helicopter starts attacking Spidey. We also get to see the original gameplay plan for what looks like level 1 and 3 of the police chase. The big change here is that the second level, where you crawl up the abandoned building in the final chase, is now the first level. What is also unique about this level is that you were able to crawl along 4 sides of the building instead of being stuck to one. And if you go down the building, spotlights will see you and shoot you, similar to the spotlights that are placed randomly throughout the final. We also get to see the full level layout where the sniper parts of the level were going to be placed, and window washers were planned to be seen on the sides of the building as you climb. It looks like they are planning to help Spidey in some way, with small writing reading, "Some are moving up to help?" ? Once you reach the top of the building, a cutscene was meant to play, which was cut from the game entirely. The next page we get to see has Rhino's gameplay plan and the cutscene that would have played after you defeat him. With this version of Rhino, your only goal is to have him ram into solid objects such as wall or girders and not hit him yourself until he goes unconscious. It's not stated where this level is set, but if I had to guess, it would be Rhino's first level design that we see in the early prototype, as the gameplay mentions Rhino running into girders, and girders are seen in the level. An interesting thing to note is that if Spidey is hit by a Rhino, he will go flying into the nearest object, while in the final, Spidey just goes straight up in the air then back to the ground. And if Spidey is hit near a wall, he will get sandwiched between Rhino and the wall, dealing a lot of damage. In the cutscene that plays after you defeat him, Rhino is knocked out and the building starts to collapse. Otto Octavius shows up and tells Spidey to stop the building while he deals with Rhino. Rhino looks over at Otto and says, "Hey, I thought we were..." And that is where the page ends sadly. but judging from this, it confirms that Rhino was working with Doc Ock and Carnage to distract Spider-Man. Another thing supporting that this was set in the prototype Rhino level is that in the sketch we see a pillar that is similar to the one we see in the prototype footage, but it could be wrong and that is something else. One of the stages in the game that had a massive change was the sewers, and in this article we get to see some of these changes in detail. The story remains really unclear, but from what I could gather, after you fight Venom the first time you would go to the next level titled Avoid Subway Cars, where you would avoid getting hit by subway trains and the police officers that were proposed to be at the subway stops. At the end of the level you would reach a stopped subway train and then jump on that. A cutscene would then play with the train starting to move, and after some time there was a subway stop in the distance. Turns out Venom was on the train the entire time invisible and hit Spidey into a hole just like one of the final cutscenes. But unlike the final cutscene, this one is extended with Spidey falling down the hole unable to web swing or wall crawl. Spidey finally hits the bottom and is greeted by the Lizardman for the first time. Spidey then puts together that the lizard must be in the sewers and is now curious why he is down there. We don't get too much information on the Lizardmen other than the best way to attack these guys in groups is to restrain some in webs so you don't get mobbed while attacking others. This is probably my favorite piece of new information, which is the early map layout for the sewer levels. An interesting but confusing thing to note is that this is L5A1 to L5A8. These are the code names for the levels, with the first number being the chapter and the last number being the level. But in the final game, L5A1 is supposed to be Catch Venom, then the rest of the levels. Venom's first fight still existed at that point during development, so maybe Venom's chapter was intertwined with Rhino's, so L4A2 would be Catch Venom and L4A3 would be Spidey vs Venom. But this is only my theory and I could be completely wrong about this. Moving on to the map, this is an extremely confusing layout, but I tried my best to piece together how this map would have worked and how it transformed into the final version.
Looks like I'm not alone. What do we have here?
The lizard, product of a twisted experiment gone wrong.
Now that demonstration I just showed you may not be 100% accurate, and it is only my take on the prototype sewer layout, but I would love to see your guys' take on this map layout either through the comments down below or your own video. A few more little things to point out in the article are that the designer admitted that he would have been up for making 5 more Spider-Man games after you fight the lizard in the sewers. Chad Finley reveals that you would then have the second fight with Venom on top of the Brooklyn Bridge to save MJ, but due to time constraints it was cut and the lizard was eventually scrapped as a boss, with him only making a cameo and appearing in the final cutscene storyboards. The web swinging early on was entirely different. You would have originally had to go into targeting mode to point where you want to shoot your web, then the game would use physics to swing you based on that pivot point. This sounds super advanced for the PlayStation and would have been cool as an alternative or bonus mode, but according to Chad it was cut out for not being fun or useful in an action setting. And as far as I know, that is everything important to know about this article released only recently about the game. I'll leave a link down below to the article by comicbookvideogames.com for you to read by yourself, as this video mainly covers the pages that were released and the article is full of interesting notes on the game's development. Thank you if you watched through the entire video, you are a real lad if you did. Also, please don't bother Chad Finley with the development book, as he was kind enough to release these pages of it already. Alright, bye.